Welcome to the 300th iteration of the Curmudgeon in the Cellar.
I think this is about 100 episodes I've personally edited.
I believe it is, yes. Been a while. And as many of you know, and if those you don't, this is Jim Wampler sitting to my right, who is my editor and puts them all together so you can view them on Saturday morning while you eat your cereal and drink your coffee. We didn't know what we were going to do special for 300, so we just decided we'd give you a double dose of helpful or not so helpful advice.
Curmudgeoning. One of us is up past our bedtime. Guess which one?
Yeah, they all know me way too well to not guess that. All right. I have a few questions on a different topic for next week. The Faerie Fire spell that debuted in Eldritch Wizardry originally outlined objects with a light. In the player handbook, the spell was revised to include characters. I gather it was at least partially inspired by a spell in the Mathematics of Magic, Book 2 of the Complete Enchanter. Were there other in-game motivations behind the spell? It wasn't cast by druids in the novel, so I'm wondering how it became associated with them. I've written to Dennis the Star, but at the time of writing this question, he hasn't responded. I have discovered another potential inspiration in the character of Marvel Comics' Dr. Druid. I'm not familiar with that one. Doctor Strange, yes. You know who that is?
Allow me to exercise my comic book expertise.
Yes, that's why I brought him tonight.
One of the very earliest Stan Lee, Jack Kirby superhero-ish characters they tried out before the Fantastic Four was called Dr. Droom, I believe. And they renamed him Dr. Druid later so that people wouldn't get him confused with Dr. Doom. Minor guy, it was the white guy saves the world trope, although it had some things in common with Doctor Strange. American guy ends up overseas, gets messed up, goes up in the Himalayas to some ancient one guy who passes his powers to him, and in that comic, which was like 1960, physically changed him into an Asian person.
Okay, so it was published before. So it is potentially a source. Okay, behind the class, up to and including both Aegeus and iron-spoiling druid magic, thus the prohibition on metal armor. I suspect the inspiration may be found in one of his spells, but I haven't yet been able to find it. As you played the druid class, I wonder whether you might have additional insights. I suspect the spell may also have risen as a way to see invisible opponents. I am primarily interested in the literary or other influence that may have inspired this spell, but I suspect it may have emerged primarily to deal with in-game issues. I'd be grateful for any recollections. So would I.
You've got every board game known to mankind in this basement. You got a Ouija board? We'll just ask Gary.
I know when I put it into Eldritch Wizardry, and it was a limited type thing, and why it got associated with the Druids. Well, the very word Faerie Fire has been used to identify certain bioluminescent fungi. So I'm sure that somewhere that became one of the components that clicked into place. As for any of the rest, beats me. I don't know that Gary was reading comics in 1960. I would guess not, unless he was getting them somewhere secondhand from a friend, because his family was somewhat hard scrabble at the time, and the comics would have been a luxury. But I can't say that. I don't know. Yeah, I played a druid, but I didn't play a druid to the extent of wanting to know every bit there was ever said about druids anywhere. I played a druid because it was a neat character class, and I liked the idea of playing a druid, and had a lot of fun with playing a druid. That's all. All right, next comment. I couldn't possibly agree with you more about playing a system as written at least a time or two before looking to tinker with it over much. I want to get a feel for what the baseline experience of the game is meant to feel like according to the designers before I start to tweak it. That's part of why I appreciate rulebooks which include a starting adventure, as it shows me their design intent clearly before I begin to mess with it. I don't generally tweak a recipe I've never tried before the first time I cook it, and the same logic applies here. Absolutely, and a great metaphor. I only tweak with recipes after I've done it wrong the first time, or want to make it better. Absolutely.
Can I
Yes.
talk about personal experience with this?
Yes, you may. He has personal experience.
Because Mutant Crawl Classics has been out for 6 years now, and I run the Facebook page, and this frequently comes up where somebody is brand new to the game, and I probably did this with D&D to my first DMs 50 years ago or whatever, but and they'll read through it and go, well, the humans are all weak, it's only cool to play this, or they'll do a false equivalency. Shamans in MCC aren't as powerful as wizards in DCC, and they haven't played the game yet. And I'm not saying as the designer my word is law, because once you've tried it a few times, go by all means, it's your game. Tweak it however you want. Tweak it before you try it. I don't really care, but campaign play will prove that as we play tested the game, that like a shaman is a pure strain human with some spells, but not nearly as many as DCC, but he's got a laser rifle and neutron bombs and force fields and all kinds of extra stuff. If anything, he can, as is often the case in almost all these games, the shaman in MCC can dominate the game after 4 or 5 levels. So you got to be careful with that.
And I think there's a certain amount of hubris involved when you read a game for the first time and go, nah, I think I'll change this here, and I think I'll change that there, and now we'll play it. Because now you're telling everybody that you believe that you're smarter than, have a better handle on the topic, that this individual that designed it probably spent a lot more time thinking about. That's always rubbed me a little bit. How do you know how do you know it's not going to, why would, anyway, good point.
Just get a baseline first.
Yeah. And then you can tell yourself what the designer did wrong.
Then go invent some cool shit that isn't in the rules and make it your own game.
How'd you get taller than me?
I don't know. We're about the same height. Are you taller than me?
My chair must be down. Okay. Must be down in typing.
How did I get to look like you, like owners and their pets? I didn't start out this way.
I've worried about that myself. All right, on to something that makes a little more sense. You made a brief mention of the game Chainmail in the video, and then later mentioned wargaming on a sand table. This sparked 2 questions. I found Chainmail's rules online many times over the year. Is it a game you'd recommend to people who have never tried miniatures wargaming but are curious about the medium? Yes, we'll stop there. Yes, I absolutely would. It's very easy. All you need is a 6-sider, some figures. You can get plastic army men or plastic figures, Airfix or whatever, or out of your children's toy box, whatever. and play with it. It's a very simple game. Very simple. It teaches the basics of miniatures. Moving, fighting. It doesn't get into order writing, which is the next level up, so that you have to commit in advance to what each unit's going to do. But it's a really good little shove the toy soldiers around on the table and have a good time. Just wiggle the mouse. They can see us, but we can see them. Ah, we're back.
Yeah, my brother plays Chainmail to this day every year, Gary Kahn. And speaking of contempt prior to investigation, as we just were, I had to be drug kicking and screaming to my first Chainmail game by Michael Curtis. That was at a sand table set up in Gary's old house in the basement where they actually played. But it was Thursday or Friday of the con. I'm tired. I didn't want to do it. I signed up for it. Michael Curtis drags me there anyway. And then the next thing you know, our side, it wasn't fantasy either. We were playing whatever that historical thing is that takes place on the Lake of the Ice, and it's Templars versus peasants.
Yeah. Alexander Nevsky.
Yeah.
That's a scene. That's a battle out of that movie.
And our side, which was entirely rookies, beat the other side, which included my car. So after that, I liked it.
Well, yeah, that winning in a few games early. Well, certainly, my love was deepened when I won a couple of tournaments at a couple of Gen Cons before I went to work there. Yeah, it's real simple, but challenging. And the vagaries of nature and combat and etc. are represented by the dice, and that's a good lesson. All right, second, never heard of gaming on a sand table before the past few days, but I'm guessing its purpose was to sculpt the landscape where you're playing. Would you please talk a little more about your personal experiences with gaming on a sand table and how that compares to other methods of miniature terrain? Okay, now we're going to define miniature terrain. We're talking about outdoors here. I never did anything underground or dug tunnels in it or anything like that. You're right, a sand table enables you an infinite amount of sculpting. Now, if you're playing 25 millimeter miniatures and it's chainmail, well then, okay, you sculpt a couple of hills, you put in a creek, simple, ordinary terrain features that become elements of the game.
A big ice lake for your knights to crash through if you
Well, yeah, I guess I'd go and get some saran wrap and aluminum foil and make it. Could do that. Now, what we did, Tramp and I, was play micro armor on a sand table. Micro armor, a little bump in the sand cuts off vision. And so to make it even more accurate, I acquired at a convention somewhere little telescopes about this tall that you set behind your tank and look through the top, and if your tank could see it, you could shoot it. And if your tank couldn't see it, you couldn't shoot it. And so we played to the terrain.
Oh my God, you guys were twitchers.
Oh, absolutely, man. We twitched hard on tanks. We had streams, forests, every kind of terrain you can think of. Big tree, big hills, little hills, defiles in the mountains. We had a great time. That's what it enables you to do, but you need to do it on a smaller scale. Or if you're playing skirmish rules, where you only have 20, 25 figures on a side, then you can get into wadis and things like that. So it gives you an infinite variety of terrain to sculpt. Now, the thing about having a sand table in your basement is dealing with the cats that you also own, because it's not a giant litter box. So
for certain, I thought that sentence was going to end with wife, and it ended with cats.
So I had to construct it was plywood cover in 3 pieces that completely covered it. You have to line it with plastic because the only way you can sculpt sand is when it's damp. So I would go in with a hose and mist it down, put in some rough, and go off to work. No, we're going to come back and play later, or it might have been Friday. We're going to play the whole weekend. Especially on the weekends. Cheryl worked. Tramp and I just played games on the sand table. We play games so long, and they start drying out. And so the hill starts sloping. And sand table, it is just an infinite, like a giant piece of clay, and you get to mold into it everything you want to play on your miniatures games. And if you get little periscopes, you can make it real life. The only thing is that we played with rules that were 1 to 1,000, 1 millimeter, 1,000 yards, or 1,000 meters. And we were using tanks that were 1 to 85, so the tanks were actually 3 times larger than the scale. And so the periscopes, I think, reflected that. And it was, we played
even
hours.
in Chainmail, it's one mini, it's 1 to 10.
10, 20, depends how many minis
Unless
you
it's
have.
a leader figure,
Right.
or a wizard, or
Which is what led to D&D. Leader figures that kept living. Okay, sand tables, an investment in time and space. Relatively easy to build. Some, scrap lumber and 2x4s and a good solid base and a lot of plastic. Hi, Tim. WotC announcing Making of Dungeons and Dragons book that is going to sell for $100, and it's basically just reprinting photocopies of OD&D, some of Gary's letters, and maybe some history material from John Peterson. I was wondering your thoughts and if they had consulted you at all. It seems like an awful lot of money to me for photocopies. I got my drive-through copies anyway. Well, I did voice a concern about that, and John pointed out that he has interviewed me a lot of times over the years and kept all those interviews, and so I didn't feel butthurt.
I'm going to express an opinion being completely blind to the book, although I have worked with John on one of his prior books, and that is, he is our industry's leading historian and a really good writer and an excellent investigative journalist. So the book value will be from his history, and then the rest of it, the reproductions, will just be eye candy, I think.
Good point. Good point. It'll be worth reading what he has to say. But as you say, reprints of photocopies are going to appeal to the history buffs and the hardcore collectors, but probably not a lot of the casual gamers, or even medium casual gamers.
I mean, me, as soon as I heard a early draft of OD&D was going to be in there, I was in. I'm like, okay, I want to read that.
Okay, I mean, that's who it'll appeal to.
Old guys.
Weird guys. Did Gary Gygax and company think a lot about how to make D&D more about role-playing and less about hack and slash? At least in the early days. And what do you think is the best way to add more role-playing to a campaign that is dominated by hack and slash? Hack and slash is a later development of the style of gameplay.
Interesting.
Believe me, we played our roles when we were playing in Gary's play tests or whatever. We were given a role and we played that role. Now, hack and slash, it's an easy out if the DM's lazy. If the DM isn't challenging them with puzzles and conundrums and whatever, let them run around and kill crap like knights at the dinner table do. But then, when that happens, hit them with enormous nuclear sanctions. How do you control hack and slash? Make them play the role they're in. We had, some of you have heard this before, we had 5 or 6 characters at any given time. The pronouns we used were he and him, not I and me. What is he going to do? He is going to attack. He is, what happened didn't happen to me, it happened to him. It was probably a little easier for us to do this in the beginning because we had 5 or 6 at any given time. So it wasn't easy to slip into I, me. Now, when it becomes I, me, well, there's ways to deal with that. The first thing you do is look at the professed alignment. If someone's professed alignment is lawful neutral and they veer over the line, then whack them for it. This is where I used the other word earlier. The British word for being punished.
Oh.
Yeah. Anyway, I can't use that word here. And it is a British soccer term. Anyway, if you...
You're saying whack them for it, but I think you probably mean...
Let the consequences fall where they may. You're not whacking them, but if you bust them on their alignment violations, then their behavior is whacking themselves.
Just like BA and the Knights and the dinner table. You know, you wipe out enough villages in a country, the king is going to start to send some people to go see what's going on. And if it's you, well, it might suck to be you.
It undoubtedly suck to be you. You can lay on a geas. You can. There's lots of things you can do to punish bad behavior according to their deity and their theological alignment.
No, I have no idea where your paladin powers went after you throttled that halfling prisoner for information.
Well, yeah, and you can't go around picking the eyeballs out of baby orcs trying to find more treasure and not take a hit if you're going to have any kind of even neutral or any kind of lawful. I saw a meme on Facebook today or yesterday. The scariest alignment is neutral, because they'll do anything.
That's actually my alignment of preference currently.
In
a 3 alignment system, I want to be neutral.
I'll take it in the whole. I'll take that box right there at neutral. Yep. A neutral means you act in your own best interest, your own self-interest, and you try not to do harm to others.
To your point, that's what I play characters in Dungeon Crawl Classics, but in real life, I'm probably neutral good, which is kind of the Jean-Luc Picard Spider-Man alignment. I have good intentions, but when I need to break the rules, I'm gonna.
Well, yeah, okay. That goes back to Kirk.
Fair point.
The next comment was from a reader from New Zealand lamenting that he feels their country's gone to hell in a handbasket. And
New Zealand?
Mm-hmm.
The place everybody wants to go?
Right. And that they can no longer write checks and everything's done with a swipe of a card, and the more brick and mortar banks are disappearing, and they're paying $2.50 for a stamp. Well, I'm sorry, times they are changing, but $2.50 for a stamp made me gag when you stop and think that the new D&D commemorative that's coming out this year is going to be, I think, 64 or 66 cents. It'll be another forever stamp, which means it's good as long as you've got them, and it'll get you from Maine to Washington in under 4 days, or 4 days or less. I feel for you with a horrible postal system like that. And the other thing that it makes it so incredibly difficult to send anything to a customer in New Zealand.
I'm starting to understand why international shipping is so expensive.
Oh my God, yeah. I mean, you pay New Zealand's rates. Geez, it's ludicrous.
I mean, I'm sure we're our fair share of that, but.
Oh yeah, but still in all, when you do enough international shipping and you see the variances, you figure the U.S. parts are pretty much constant, and everything else you're dealing with the other countries' postal irregularities. At least that was my experience when I was dealing with that kind of crap.
I'm going to defend New Zealand, and I will never ever be able to afford to visit there. There's more than just how much postage costs. Would we trade car keys and go live in each other's country? I bet we would both want to come home eventually.
Probably. We're a product of our environment and our nurture and our nature.
I'm an Anglophile. I always wanted to visit England. Doctor Who made me an Anglophile, and Monty Python made me an Anglophile for life. but I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be as happy living there.
Well, I always wanted to go to Scandinavia and see where my father's family came from, but God, no, I wouldn't want to live there. And then he asked me how have times changed for you in this mundane. What do I miss? Common sense.
Oh man, they teach you they gave you permission to bitch about anything you want.
Yeah, common sense. Our political landscape is a fool's stew, and until somebody drains the cauldron and sorts it all out, it's going to continue to be. We have the dumbing down of the American voter, and I'll give you. Okay, I'm going to curmudgeon here. Where did all this crap with all this misinformation come from? Rush Limbaugh and Rupert Murdoch. Thank those two gems for the shitstorm we find ourselves living in today with social media and misinformation and the rise of the moronic.
I'm going to stay out of the politics except to say that I'm very clear on what levers, because I try and keep it to what can I do. And one of my levers is vote. So I vote every primary, every election without fail. And
I've probably voted more of them than you have.
you worked a poll station. Well, of course you've voted
Yeah.
more than I have.
Well, I don't know. I had to wait till I was 21. I don't know. You might have been able to vote
Oh,
at
no,
18.
no. I could vote at 18.
Yeah, see, I had to wait till I was 21. I was actually 22 when I got to finally vote.
And completely wasted my vote on the presidential independent candidate. What was his name? Anderson. Just like a young person should.
Well, we'll.
I helped get Ronald Reagan elected. Rah!
I thought, oh God, I thought your Patreon Cellar tour is a good idea. Take it on the road? No. Thanks anyway. Thanks for answering my tournament and ranking questions. Okay, this spurred the rest of all the comments.
I bet.
And so I'm going to summarize it because I got another page and a half of print. I'm going to summarize it and then hit on a couple of the high points. Most people think it's not a good idea. A number of people think that that remaining completely objective is nearly impossible. Many people think that it's nothing more. Be careful now. It's nothing more than bragging rights. All right, we're still going. All right, and that
I don't understand the original thing. Is a post against tournament play and ranking systems, or just the complexities of it?
An individual commented a week or two ago. He was trying to put together a system using something from '83 and something from '87, back when the RPGA was around. And
well, fair point, at least, because it's a very sticky problem since the game is inherently subjective, and solving that problem was how we went from OD&D to AD&D in part, right? Back in the old days.
right, it's I believe it's impossible to devise a system to rank players regionally, nationally. I don't think it's possible. Rank them in a tournament over a weekend at a convention? Certainly. That's why you had all those criteria boxes to check off to see who went on to the next round and the next round after that. But anything else other than monsters slain, rooms searched, traps triggered, is going to be subjective. Innovation is going to be subjective on the part of the DM for giving points for innovation. Insight, good role play, that's going to be terribly subjective.
I mean, I'm still confused between convention games and home campaigns, but at a home campaign, if your players keep coming back, you know you're doing a good job as a DM, and if as the DM you don't burn out and lose interest yourself, you know you got good players. Everybody's having fun. That's a ranking.
Yeah, we're not chess. Okay, you can't rank There's not, chess is how many games you win against whom. Okay, easy peasy. Bridge, how many tournaments do you win? What's your ranking? What were the rankings of the other players? Rankings there are achieved by tournaments and wins and performance. Can't do that. I don't think that's a thing that is possible to do in the very, very, very subjective world of role-playing. After all, it's so subjective. Am I going to come back here next week and play again? The most subjective decision of all.
Was that fun? Now, what's more subjective than fun? Everybody's got different tastes. Different things are fun for them.
Exactly. That's the other thing. You can't rate DMs. Everybody's going to rate their DM. That any group that keeps coming back is going to rate their DM highly. So where's going to be the there is no really accurate method of that. Is a DM going to get rated on the fact he gives away a lot of goodies? That doesn't necessarily make him a good DM. Not unless there's a commensurate risk to the reward. Let's see what else is.
I mean, if some guy is running a Money Hall campaign and his players are having a hoot and he's having fun, that affects me not at all.
Yeah, well, and supposedly WotC Hasbro's they're coming out with some kind of system.
Oh Lord, it's probably generative AI driven and.
The last comment on this, I have no hesitation saying it's just not my jam. I enjoy D&D the most when the players are high-fiving that 19 or 20, or when the players are laughing their asses off at some great role-playing. Winning just isn't a D&D concept to me. And I agree. I mean, we all laughed our butts off at Parks and Recreation when was that Chevy Chase running around, or we won at D&D. I mean, oh yeah, okay. Yeah, it's not something you win.
I mean, that's the
best. Winning is the fun you took home with you, the memories you made that night.
Bragging rights in the story you tell. Like in that last season of Stranger Things when they finally took down Vecna and it was the little pint-sized kid that.
Oh, don't tell me! I haven't seen that.
Oh, sorry. It was fantastic representation of old AD&D game.
Now there was one other.
And you bet they were high-fiving each other.
There's one other very cogent comment made. Only a fraction of the people attending a convention are likely to register for tournament play, and convention attendees are only a small fraction of the total number of players. So it's definitely not something the majority will ever pursue.
I agree with that.
I'm not belittling your work, you that are the previous commenter who are compiling this. If it's strictly a mental pursuit, a pursuit of yours, that's fine. But it's not. It's awful hard to find any validity in this.
Permission to curse?
Certainly.
I mean, it's like the coming up on 50-year quest that somebody is going to write a set of RPG rules that somehow fixes shitty DMs and terrible players. Okay, in 50 years, no one's done it, but you might be the guy who comes up with this tournament system. So don't give up on it because we're curmudgeoning about it.
Well, hey, everybody's entitled to spend their free.
In fact, if you think you cracked it, I want to know about it.
Well, and the other thing about conventions and tournaments is that what you give up to enter a tournament is considerable. We'll say the tournament runs Friday, Saturday, and finishes off on Sunday morning. Okay, you made a commitment to be there on Sunday. You made a commitment to be in the tournament on Saturday. What happens if you don't make it out of the first round on Friday? Now you got a Saturday that you're wandering around looking for games with an opening that you know what the hell's going on. Now, if you didn't have anything on Sunday, yeah, okay, you can book. But you completely committed. If you weren't going to be leaving on Sunday, you're going to play until late in the afternoon. Maybe you live only a couple hours away. You've trashed Sunday.
And sometimes in tournament play, that's a group
Yeah.
that didn't make it to the finals.
Yeah. The way we used to run it, people could come together. 3 or 4 guys say, yeah, we're in a group. Okay. We'd put them in and add 3 or 4 strangers, however big the group was. Or 8 individuals come in. Hi, you group 12. And so, hi, I'm in group 12 too. So it was a very different system. And of course, everybody was running around, killing everything, slitting open every non-human they killed, looking for gems that they ate.
Oh, when I was still at Goodman, we went through a phase of doing level 0 character funnel tournaments. And that was just a conga line out the door and down the hall. Those were fantastic fun, but not what this guy's talking about, I guess.
No, not what this guy's talking about. Okay. Now I have a rant, and I have something I'm really keen on showing you. So I'll show you what I'm really keen on, and then I'll give you my rant. Our rant.
Allow me to be your Vanna White and turn.
So it shines. Yeah, there we go. Finally, The Curse of the Weaver Queen. Put out by Ogar Games.
Grab your 14-year-old version of this, how it all started. I think you ran it for us about 10 years ago, and
09.
we didn't die.
No, I published this. It was desktop publishing, comb binding. I know I'm trying to keep the glare off, so you can see it. And I wrote it for the North Texas.
09 and 2024, and no AI art to be seen. Let's open it up.
All kinds of neat pieces of stuff, books, maps,
All kinds of books.
charts, a
Two
bestiary book all of its own.
giant posters. Some punch-out counters. Some dice that just dropped to the bottom of the box.
Oh, the dice are really choice. They're pre-worn.
You'll have to take my word for it.
Here,
They
I can show
very
you.
much look like the Holmes Basic D8, except with an aged patina already included.
And the corners, they're sharp, don't get me wrong, but they've already got those lovely wear lines on the sides and the corners.
I'm gonna guess they were designed that way.
Yes, they were.
And probably won't crumble in 2 months of hard play.
No,
Like
no.
those old dice did.
No. But anyway, there's a whole bunch of good pieces and neat stuff in there. And it'll be available at GaryCon. I got 3 products that'll probably be available at GaryCon.
In answer to the age-old question, the old man still got it.
I have this. I'll have The Lost Adventures. And
Possibly D20 Delving.
Yes.
I called Don tonight because I knew we were going to record this, and he rated the chances of D20 Delving being at the Wizard Tower Games booth at this GaryCon in 2.5 weeks at 90%.
yeah, we've had a veritable nightmare with
If it's
customers.
not there, it isn't his fault because it's awaiting release from customs.
Well, I finally put him in touch with Chris Clark, who knows more about international
Hey, he was telling me
shipping.
that tonight.
He knows more about international shipping than any individual in this industry that I know. And so we may have finally expedited it. And the whole goddamn thing started because some craven son of a bitch, whose name we won't say, but whose initials are Lanasa, dropped a dime on us and said that there's contraband in the shipment. And we've been fighting through this crap for 6 months now. It was a year ago that I did the final bit of the recording.
You say some son of a bitch, I say some cluster B personality disorder named Justin Lanasa.
Oh, okay. Yes. We think that, yeah. Anyway, that's that. Now, my Andy Rooney rant. My Curmudgeon, renewing my Curmudgeon credentials for another 100 episodes.
This is the part where I get excited, except I'm right next to you now. Like when you do this on the other episodes and I'm editing, I always lean in. Okay, this should be good.
I was watching a post, I ran across a post on Facebook. Somebody had decided they were going to rewatch one of the episodes of the Lord of the Rings. I believe it was the 3rd one, which immediately prompted a torrent of complaints about What was wrong with that movie?
Oh Lord, what was wrong with a movie that was a massive box office success? So
Well-
much so they needed to make a whole nother 3 Hobbit movies.
It's the same shortcomings that a lot of today's game reviewers. They want to bitch about what it wasn't based on what they thought it should be as to what it was. Now, having said that, I challenge you to go find, other than probably To Kill a Mockingbird, go find a movie that stayed absolutely close to the book. Things get conflated, things get left out, things get changed around. It's called movie making.
How many hundred of pages is Return of the King? I mean, like 8 or 9?
Oh, it's enormous. It's huge. And so, don't tell me why you didn't like the sandworms in Dune. Was the rest of the movie wonderful eye candy? Enjoy it for what it is. Lord of the Rings was pure eye candy for me. I gobbled it up with a big spoon. That was a culmination of something we'd set out decades ago to create, and we rolled the first little snowball down the hill. I loved it. Yeah, the Ghost Army came in at the wrong place. So what? Tell the millions of people that bought tickets to go see it, oh yeah, you won't like it because the Ghost Army comes in at the wrong place. Oh, come on.
Not speaking about the person that wrote this comment or this situation specifically, but maybe you can answer this. It seems to me that we're in the middle of 2024 of just outrage culture, where my advice is, if you don't enjoy something, don't buy it, don't read it, don't watch it, because that's what I do and I'm on my way.
Yeah, and you don't spend the rest of your afternoon telling people why they shouldn't either.
I mean, in the old days and like the apazines and stuff, was it like this? Or is it just the volume is bigger because now we are all connected?
The apazines were sharing ideas. And if it was a dud idea, it didn't get picked up, and then people might tinker with it. Now, there was a case of people tinkering with stuff before they did anything with it. Somebody say, well, I think we ought to handle missiles this way. It should be this way instead, but that was okay. That's what the apazines were for. They shared ideas with each other about how they would do things. They also got off on some wild goose jaunts, into the ether about how they thought things ought to be, but none of those lasted.
Well, I was trying to ask a fair question because before I was a RPGer, I was a Star Trek nerd, and I went to science fiction conventions at like age 15, and
Jesus.
And bought Starlog magazine and some of the zines, and I don't remember it being like this. And what I mean by like this is there are a bunch of Facebook groups for everything I love, and I can't set foot in them because the most innocuous, hey, isn't this a great thing, will just turn into 20 or 30 comments of people bitching and then flame warring each other.
Well, and
I don't remember fandom. I'm sure an element of that is always there because the through line is human nature, but I don't remember it being like it is now.
Well, and that's because of the fact that it's all on the internet. There was, in the fanzines, there would be the occasional critical piece in the next iteration of the magazine about no, that's not a good way to do it, you ought to do it this way or whatever. That occasionally happened, but nobody that compiled those, and the fanzines were an enormous labor of love, nobody that compiled those was going to waste time on the kind of crap that gets out there today about why they didn't like it or why it was wrong, or nobody was willing to put that kind of an investment in that type of negativity. Of course, the internet's nothing but negativity, thanks to two wonderful persons who shall be, I hope, damned in hell forever, and I'm still sticking pins in, and that's Rupert Murdoch and Rush Limbaugh. Okay? They made it okay to tell untruths, which opened the gates to people dumping on each other. It's all a linear progression, at least in my opinion.
What's your show? So,
well, I always say, in my opinion. I don't pretend to be the ultimate answer.
Well, right. Because behind what fuels all this, and I think social media has caused everybody to have a big magnifying lens for it is what is the value of one individual's personal experience? On what subjects can I even give an informed opinion? I'm not a professional movie critic. I've never written a movie.
But that doesn't.
I didn't go to film school.
Doesn't stop 3/4 of the yahoos that get on and want to give us their opinion without any credentials, without any basis, just rant. Oh, the movie was horrible. It didn't,
And back to my point, the market will tell. I mean,
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
as far as games go, somebody makes a terrible game that truly is awful and no one would ever enjoy it. The game doesn't sell and the company goes out of business.
Well, the D&D movie did not make the makers rich, and I'm sorry about that because I enjoyed it. Was it perfect? Hell no. Can you really go through a gelatinous cube? So what? No. It's the movies. They were hoping that half the audience was going to be people that had never played the game before, not D&D playing critics.
Well, that's a market point too. It's something that's made for a mass audience that comes in trying creatively in your presentation to take in a large segment of the population. So the D&D movie was not made for you in particular or me in particular.
No. It's like the Ghost Army. Okay? So they brought it in somewhere else. It only mattered to people that wanted to get their shorts in a wad because that's not where it happened. But for the average movie-going guy that's, I'm going to see what this is about, it was great theater, great cinema. A Ghost Army. They got to wrap that into the story. So what if it wasn't there in the book?
I know for a fact what's changed since I was a
Ooh, there's
teenager.
stuff floating through there.
Oh, it's a ghost of something.
That's
What did we
our
decide?
vape.
The ghost of Tim Pass, because dust is all skin cells, maybe a little ghost of me. What I know has changed is when I was in high school, and the science fiction Star Trek nerd, Star Trek was a dead show. It was never coming back then. We got by on Space 1999 and Logan's Run and the Bionic Woman,
Anything. Oh, yeah.
and we're Quark,
Quark.
and glad to have it, right?
Sure.
Today, there's more than any of us can watch. It's an embarrassment of riches. So.
And some of it's quite good and some of it isn't. That's always been the way it is with movies.
So back to my point, if you don't like it, don't watch it.
Yeah, watch it. Go see another one. You don't. If you don't think you're going to like it, don't go. Don't spend your money.
Social media has definitely nearly been the death of informed critique.
Oh, absolutely. Any moron can get on the social media and tell all the other morons that are willing to listen to him what's wrong with something. One of the great dangers of social media is the amplification it gives to morons.
You know what I like about being this age? I'm going to do a terrible version of it, but one of Seinfeld's recent specials, he's doing a show in New York, and at that time he was, I think, the age I am now, and he was talking about how annoying it is as he's walking down the street and people say, hey, come look at this great thing, and his attitude is, you know what, I don't want to. I've seen enough great things. I kind of like not caring anymore.
Yeah.
As passionately as I did.
Yeah. I care about what I'm writing. I care about that, but the rest of it,
And it's not like I don't have, everybody does, but I have my own, okay, you crossed the line, J.J. Abrams. You don't build a starship on the surface of the Earth. I'm done with your Star Trek movies. Okay, well, that's me. I don't have to get on a bully pulpit and preach the gospel to everybody who will listen to me on social media.
Yeah, director does something you don't like, fine. Don't like it.
We're both really good friends with Jolly, and Jolly and I had the best time talking about this now. We have entirely different taste in TVs and movies. And me personally, I'm mystified at some of the things, TV shows and movies he likes, because Jolly himself, I recognize as a storyteller par excellence, a writer in that comic book with a keen insight.
Oh, the insight
to human nature.
And gaming nature.
And then he'll tell me, he liked some ridiculous movie I didn't make it 20 minutes into.
But that's it.
Oh, this is good. I'm sorry. I'm going to take over your show for 30 seconds. The first Peter Jackson Hobbit movie, my brother made that a team-building exercise at the office and treated us all to the movies in the middle of the day. We didn't have to go back to work. I got so bent out of shape over that first Hobbit movie that 20 minutes in, I got up and walked out.
But why?
I wasn't enjoying it.
You'd read The Hobbit?
It didn't cost me any money. My brother paid for the
Yeah,
ticket.
okay. All right. Yeah.
I love the book, The Hobbit, and I like the old cartoon even. And
Well, see, I have
my point was, that's just me. I don't have to, you know.
Yeah, and I have a totally different perspective. Because the first time it came upon me one day sitting in a hobby movie in the theater, this is the culmination of what we'd set out to do in 1975, and that was make fantasy mainstream. So I'm going to go, and now there's some that I read enough bad reviews I don't waste my time on, but I'm willing to go and see how well they do and enjoy it for what it is, and I'll tell you about it afterwards if you care about why I didn't or did like it.
Fair enough too. Like we have our MCU thing where you'll go with me to see all the Ant-Man movies and all the Doctor Strange movies.
Mm-hmm.
So those were your two guys. And the last, no, it wasn't the last. It was the one in between Ant-Man movie. I remember you going,
Yeah,
it wasn't grabbing you like the first one did.
No.
But we sat through it. And
we did, and I didn't go home and
went
write
back
about
to the next one, which even got worse reviews.
Yeah, and I didn't go home and say, "Oh man, that Ant-Man movie sucked." No, I didn't. Who cares whether I liked it or
If
not?
it sucks, don't worry about it. They're going to make more.
Yeah, who cares what I think about it anyway? It's not going to drive their box office sales up or down. So what? All right, I think we've.
Was that sufficient curmudgeoning?
Yeah, I think so. I think we made up for our boo-boo earlier.
I hope I curmudgeoned enough and didn't embarrass you.
No. You'll never come back again, but that's... No. Just joking. Don't climb up anyone's orifice.
I edit these. I'll green screen myself in if I need to.
Well, we got to let know. People just don't understand humor. So, before you go climbing up any orifice, it was a joke. And on that note,
social media is very different from friendship. You and I in a car for 7 hours driving to Gary.
Oh yeah, people want to sit in the back seat and listen. Many people have told us that, and we're going, no, you don't, and no, you won't.
I can think of two people who tried and didn't ask for a second trip. Phil and your buddy from Lexington, the
oh
guy.
yeah. Yeah, they found themselves overwhelmed.
That kind of complaining.
Well,
It might be one of the pillars of our friendship.
It could well be. We offend anybody equally. And on that curmudgeonly note, I'll say, Dodata Govi. Hello, and welcome to my cellar.
He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs. Still quite a feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Last man around when them rates went down. Calling Gary in that Lake Geneva town. Hey Gary, it's an awful mess. Let me edit, we'll have success. D&D and Dragon Magazine. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Magic missile, it's a mortar shell. Make it hit in the first level spell. Brought psionics to the game to attack that wizard's brain. DSR and fantasy, collection of micro armory. Titan with tramp under a tree, high as could be. He's the curmudgeon who wrote about the dungeons. Now he's the feller, live from the cellar. Talks about D&D and old school RPGs, but he's still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Still quite the feller, the curmudgeon in the cellar. Curmudgeon.